Welcome, students, to the very last week of class. So congratulations on making it to the very end of English 420. Now this week, as I promised you, I'm going to do something that's not on your syllabus. And so this week I'm going to go over chapter 12, which is neurolinguistics. In other words, how the brain processes language and how you process language in your brain. Well, why is this important? If you can understand how your brain processes language, then you can understand how ChatGPT processes language, because the people at Sam Altman and Anthropic, they're designing their AI to think like a brain, to process language like a child. So they're making their neural circuits look like the neurons of a brain. And I think this research on actually using brain cells, and so on and so forth, and put that into the computer. So my cousin's son majored in AI, and so natural language processing, and he's now going to work at some AI company. And so I'm like, wow, that's the wave of the future. So that's the reason why for this very last video, even though it's not on your syllabus, you don't have to read it if you don't. So this is voluntary. So obviously this is voluntary reading. This is not, oh, you got to do this for some quiz or test. So this is for your own information. And so this week I will go over chapter 12, which talks about brain and how the brain processes language. And so let's see here. Let me get to that particular chapter. And it's here. Yeah, share. Okay, here we go. As soon as I have to get rid of this green thing. All right. And so chapter 12, the brain's language, and so how the brain, and so when we study the relationship between the brain and linguistics, and the two of them together that is the study of neurons and the brain and linguistics, and you put all of that together, is called neurolinguistics. That is the study of language in the brain. So neurolinguistics is the study of how language is represented in the brain. This field examines how various brain regions collaborate to facilitate language comprehension, speech production, and writing. And so neurolinguistics underscores the idea that our linguistic abilities are rooted in biological structures and processes. So you have a specialized area in your brain just for language. So the brain dedicates specific areas to different aspects of language. Broca's area, located in the left, so basically, well, your left is my right, but my left here is where my language skills are. Broca's area, located in the left hemisphere. This area is crucial for speech production and grammar. Damage to this area results in Broca's aphasia that is characterized by difficulty in forming sentences. Wernicke area, also in the left hemisphere, this area is vital for understanding language. Injury to Wernicke's area leads to Wernicke's aphasia, where an individual may produce fluent but nonsensical speech. Interconnectedness of language regions. Language processing is not confined to isolated areas, but involves interconnected networks. The motor cortex. This area controls the movements needed for speaking, illustrating the link between language and physical action. So that's the motor cortex. The arcuate fasciculus. This is the bundle of nerve fibers that connects the Broca's area and Wernicke's area, enabling smooth communication between speech production and comprehension. This connection is essential for fluent conversation. While the localization view suggests that specific functions, such as language, are centered in particular areas of the brain, language processing is complex and involves multiple areas working together. This indicates that while certain areas are primary for language, the way the brain processes language is distributed, is a distributed function requiring broad neural coordination. And so neurons, I do remember what a neuron is, because when I took the neurolinguistics class, my teacher kept saying neuron, neuron. Neuron is spelled Neuron. And neuron is, I think it's one of those, it's a brain, it's part of the brain, kind of like a cell. And it is the different neurons, as the different neurons are connected together. And that's what connects all of your different memories and experiences, all the connections of all the different neurons, groups and clusters of neurons, and so on and so forth. So when I took the neurolinguistics class, that word neuron, neuron, neuron was everywhere. And I remember my teacher, professor at UCLA, had Albert Einstein's brain. Yeah, the actual brain of Albert Einstein in a jar. And we got to touch Albert Einstein's brain. We had to wear gloves. And then you get to, and then he said that Albert Einstein had a unique brain. And it was the way the brain, Albert Einstein's brain, it was smaller than, I don't remember if it was smaller. I just remember the way it was, Albert Einstein's brain was, the way the neurons were situated. That's what made Albert Einstein so smart, because he had efficient neurons. And then we compared Albert Einstein's brain with a normal brain, and we could see how Albert Einstein's neurons took full advantage of, I forget how it was clustered. It was his neurons were clustered in such a way that he got absolute efficiency of his intelligence. And you're going to have to study that on your own. But it was fascinating to be able to carry Albert Einstein's brain. So anyway, the localization view and the complexity of language processing. While the localization view suggests that specific functions, such as language, are centered in particular areas of the brain, language processing is complex and involves multiple areas working together. This indicates that while certain regions of the brain are primary for language, language is a distributed function requiring broad neural coordination. Insights from speech errors and language disorders. Errors and disorders provide valuable insights into brain function. Slips of the tongue. These common speech errors, like saying, I had a feeling of great unrest, instead of saying, I had a feeling of great rests, reveal how closely related words are stored in our memory, shedding light on language processing mechanisms. Aphasia. This language disorder that results from brain damage profoundly affects communication. Different types of aphasia corresponds to specific damaged areas. Broca's aphasia, difficulty with speaking and forming sentences. Wernicke's aphasia, difficulty understanding language and producing meaningful speech. Conduction aphasia, difficulty in repeating phrases due to disconnection between language production and comprehension areas. The critical period for language acquisition. The concept of a critical period for language acquisition highlights the time-sensitive nature of language learning. The critical period hypothesis suggests there is a specific time frame in early childhood when the brain is particularly sensitive to learning language. if language exposure is missed during this early childhood window, then it can be much harder for a child to catch up and learn language. The case of Jeannie, a child who experienced severe language deprivation illustrates the importance of early language exposure for normal development. This serves as a stark reminder of the critical period significance. So I mentioned briefly in, I don't remember which chapter, I think it was second language acquisition, no, it was first language acquisition. I mentioned that from the age of, I guess, babyhood all the way up to 12, that's like the critical period when the brain is most malleable or most flexible for learning language. And after the age of 13, then the brain becomes harder to learn another language. And so this early period of first language acquisition, when children first learn a native language, is known as the critical period for language acquisition. If a child is deprived of this early language exposure, then that child will never really speak English, or any language for that matter, very well. And so when you read the textbook, there's a case called Jeannie, where this child was, I think she was locked in a closet, in a dark closet, for her whole childhood or something. And so nobody spoke to her or something. And then by the time she was an adult, they tried to teach her, or as a teenager or whatever, she tried to learn speech, but she never got past 2 or 3 years old development. I mean, she remained very very primitive in her language development because she was not exposed to language at an early age during that critical period for language acquisition. It's during that, when you're a baby, you have so many. That's the part of your life you have the most brain cells, okay? Because when you're first born, you haven't used your brain cells. Every day you're alive, you actually use up some of your brain cells. Kind of like you're using up the cell phone battery. And each time you recharge it, it doesn't quite recharge fully like it did before. And so throughout a person's, oh, this is not in your textbook, is it? Okay. Anyway, throughout a person's life, you use up so many brain cells. And so when you're first born, your brain is tailored for, geared to learning language, communicating. And so you must, if you're a parent, you need to expose your child to as much language as possible in the form of talking to your child, interacting with your child. Reading books to your child is really good for language development, so that later on the child will have a better literacy rate and will associate books with love. Okay, so it's really important during that time, that critical time called the critical period for, oh, I don't really need to read this anymore, so I'm not sure why I still have this up. Okay, yeah, so as I was saying, it's very important for parents to expose their child as much as possible to language, whether it's through talking, interaction, and not just let your kid on looking at a screen. I'm not talking about having your kid watch a lot of YouTube videos. That's not the same thing as face-to-face, okay? And seeing the body gesture, it's got to be 3D, okay? In other words, your physical you teaching the child to learn. Then the child learns faster. They say that if you have too much screen time, okay, watching a video, your brain activity is very low, okay? And then if you're talking with someone, your brain activity skyrockets. You want the skyrocket. That's why there's no shortcut. You have to be the one, you the parent, to teach the kid the language, to talk with the kid, interact with the kid, whether it's playing a game or whatever, or reading a book. And they say that kids when parents are too busy and don't read to their kids, then the kids come to school not knowing what a book is. not knowing how you open a book, not knowing what a story is, and then they fall behind all the other, kids who already have their favorite. My favorite story is when, I don't know, Goldilocks got such and such. So other people already have their favorite stories, and you're sitting around going, what's a story? You start school behind everybody else. And so you want to have your child to increase literacy and also increase the brain activity is interaction, so that the kid will learn more language, learn to love reading. And I also read that some of the younger parents think that reading is not fun, and then therefore it's not fun to read to their kid, mainly because they themselves don't know how to read. So spending too much time on a computer or screen time is not the same as you yourself reading to your kid and teaching your kid about how the story goes, and getting your kid to read and all that kind of stuff is really, really crucial for normal language development during that critical period in which any kid, you throw the baby anywhere in the world, it will learn that language. Okay, if you throw that baby to Africa or to Europe or Asia, it's going to learn the languages of wherever you throw it to, or wherever it grows up. And that's one of the miracles, when you think about it, of the human brain, of how adaptable it is to anywhere it can learn any language. And so this goes back to the very first chapter we worked on, is what is the origin of language? Where did that come from? Why is it that humans seem wired to learn language? And where did that come from? And I think, this is my opinion, I truly believe in the divine source. Since LAPU is a Christian university, and I'm allowed to say that. Normally it's secular, and I just simply tell you the different theories and let everybody decide for themselves. But since this is a religious university, I believe that the reason why we are all wired for language is God made us that way. So that if we are wired for language to learn communications, then we can better communicate with God. You see, and if you're going to worship God, you got to be able to communicate with God. Okay, so it makes sense that God would then put into us the gift of language. And that's how human language differs from animal language, because humans can make up so many words and abstract thought and think about the present, the past, and the future. So that God gave us all of those to differentiate us from animals, because God wanted us to worship him. God wants us to bring order to chaos. God wants us to hone our God-given talents in order to worship him and to make him great. God also gave us the ability to appreciate beauty, so that we could appreciate the beauty of God's creation. So I believe that, for me anyway, personally, I believe that language came from God, and that originally, before the Tower of Babel, all humans everywhere spoke one language. And it's only when humans got too arrogant and they wanted to build that tower to heaven to show their ego, that God got mad and spread all the languages everywhere. And so I think that the week 8 will have something about that. I haven't, this is my first time teaching this class, so I haven't yet had time to go over all the resources in the classroom yet. But that is my 2 cents on how I think where language came from. And in the next video, I'm going to make one more video after this, because it's such fun doing these videos. And if you have any questions about linguistics, you should study computational linguistics. I think that's the name of the field, the AI field that's going hot. in which that way, when you graduate, you know all the linguistics, you know all the neurons in your brain, and you can help ChatGPT have a brain more like humans and stuff like that. So that's what my cousin's son did when he went to Vassar University, and he majored in, AI and stuff like that. So anyway, that's the end of this particular lecture. I hope that you enjoyed English 420, which gives you a small taste. I never got around to going over word order in other cultures. Just didn't get around to that. It's such a short class too. In any case, I hope that you enjoyed these videos. And if there are any other linguistic topics you want me to cover while we are going through class, I'm glad to make additional videos on those topics. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me at any time. And if you like this video, feel free to subscribe to the Professor H Writing channel. And so that's, oh, get this totally irrelevant to this topic. I just got 1,000 subscribers. Can you believe that? Wow. So that's totally irrelevant. Anyway, so, and that goes against the maxim of Grice, in which you're supposed to only talk about what's relevant. Anyway, so have a great week. And it's been a great 8 weeks. I've had a great time making these 8 videos, which I made just for this class. And so, yeah, I did it all in one sitting too. Well, within the course of one day, which is why I'm wearing the same outfit in every single video. But irrelevant. So if you want to obey maxims, the maxims of GRICE, you don't go irrelevant like I just did. Anyway, so if you have any questions, feel free to email me at any time. And it has been a pleasure having everybody in this class. I was looking for the record button, the stop record button. So have a great week, and I hope you all have a great linguistic life. Okay.